Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to San Diego in California for this one, and apparently that's a bit of a craft beer mecca, so I really need to get over there and see it for myself. But we're actually going to visit one of the more well-known breweries from over there. So we're going to go to Ballast Brewing Company, my very first review from these guys incidentally, and tonight we're having a taste of their Sculpin, which is an IPA, and this should be a really damn awesome beer. This is rated at 100 out of 100 on Rate Beer, both in the style and overall, and that website very rarely leads you wrong, so I'm very excited to try this beer. I also want to dedicate this review to one of my viewers, John Shepherd, who's from Sydney in Australia. He was telling me that he was over in California on conference and he went to actually visit the Ballast Point Brewery among many other California breweries, so I'm very jealous of John and his wife Helen for that trip. It's something that I'd really like to do, but he told me that he really liked the grapefruit Sculpin. Unfortunately I couldn't find that one, but I did manage to find this one here, the regular Sculpin in Sweden, so I dedicate this review to John and Helen, who were really nice when I met them over in Sydney. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual website links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that I'll do from Ballast Point. As I said, very first time I'm trying one of their beers, and there's all the usual social media things down there as well, Facebook, Twitter and Untappd. Your support there would be much appreciated. If you want to see more beer reviews, please subscribe to the channel. Many things, Swedish, Danish, whatever you like, just search in the channel and you will find it. But to my Californian viewers, I do ask that you please let me know some other Californian breweries and beers that you'd like me to have a look at. I will see if I can get them here in Sweden, or of course back at home in Scotland. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Ballast Point Brewing Company. So as I told you, these guys are based in San Diego in California, and they were founded by Jack White back in 1996. But Jack and his roommate Peter Hearn had homebrewed together during their time at UCLA, and after university Jack went on to open Home Brew Mart in San Diego, and apparently many of the customers of this store actually went on to found their own breweries, and they're quite widely credited with being part of the reason that San Diego is a little bit of a craft beer mecca these days. But soon after, Peter Hearn went off to UC Davis to train for his Master Brewer certificate, and he was actually the first head brewer of Ballast Point. However, he decided quite quickly to take a back seat in the company, and soon after that Yusuf Cherny was hired by the company, and they established their backroom brewery in Home Brew Mart in 1996, and this of course marked the birth of the Ballast Point Brewing Company, and the name comes from the historically important site at Point Loma in San Diego. I always find it funny when they talk about Point Loma, because I think this is named after Loma, which is very close to me here in Lund in Sweden, a very nice beach town actually, and the same over in California I would assume. But in 2004 the brewery opened a larger facility at Scripps Ranch, and in 2013 they opened a new brewery and tasting room and restaurant in the Little Italy district of San Diego, and this also functions as their beer lab where they produce a lot of their small batch and experimental beers. But by 2014 they'd outgrown their brewery at Scripps Ranch, and they began construction of a new facility at Miramar, which opened in 2014, and this also contained a tasting room and also a restaurant. But since 2008 they've also produced spirits at the Scripps Ranch facility, and this serves as their current distillery today. There's about 14, maybe 15 different spirits, and as I say, you can get an idea of those if you go and have a look at the website below. But the original founder Jack White has acted as the president and CEO of the company until June 2015, very recently of course, but this role was then taken over by Jim Beuchler, who had been the general manager since 2012, and Yusuf Cherny also serves still as the head brewer and is also the operations manager too. But the company was offered for public stock in October 2015, and as of November 2015 there's a pending deal for the company to be taken over by Constellation Brands, who are based over in New York on the east coast of America. There's been a bit of a kind of hoo-ha with that, a lot of people complaining that the breweries are sort of selling out to the big companies, but I mean, in my opinion, you know, as long as the company still produces good beer, then I don't see what the real issue is. The big one that sold out recently was Lagunitas, and these guys obviously have joined a bigger company as well, so it seems to be a bit of a trend now. And there was also Elysian, who are from Seattle in Washington. They've sold to a big company as well, and a lot of Americans are quite disappointed about that. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, as long as the beer still tastes good, I don't really care who owns the company. So we'll just see how it goes. As long as the beer remains good, that's the main thing. So just to list the other beers you can get from Ballast Point quickly, there's the Big Eye IPA, the Ballast Point Pale Ale, Sculpin IPA, this guy here, Black Marlin Porter, Calico Amber Ale, Woohoo White Beer, Victory at Sea Imperial Porter. John said that one was a really awesome beer. Sea Monster Stout, Tongue Buckler, which is an Imperial Red. That sounds right up my street, that one. I love Imperial Red beers. There's the Dorado, which is a double IPA, Fathom IPL, Even Keel, Grapefruit Sculpin, which John told me to check out as well, so I will in the near future. There was the Habanero Sculpin and also the Grunion beer as well. So as I say, if you want to learn more about the beers or spirits from Ballast Point, go and check out the website below and you can get a look at those. So this one is a 7% IPA. It should be very nice. As I said, rated 100 out of 100 on Rate Beer, both in the style and overall. So I'm expecting this to be a pretty awesome beer. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the actual specs of this beer on the website. Some breweries list them, some breweries don't. Unfortunately, Ballast Point are one of the ones that don't. So there you can see the bottle cap on this one there, the Ballast Point symbol there, a nice kind of bell with some telescopes and stuff sticking out of it, or microscopes, I'm not quite sure, but you can see the nice Sculpin fish on the label there. And as you could guess by the names I just read out for you, most of the beers from Ballast Point are named after the fish, and I think that is just a reference to the fact that Ballast Point are very close to the sea. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting then. So a nice smoky opening there, a lot of gas coming out of that one actually, and you can smell the nice kind of juicy fruits coming off this one. It smells kind of peachy and mango-y actually as I'm pouring it out here. But I don't know why it's taken me so long actually to get around to trying one of the Ballast Point beers. I've seen them around quite a lot, but I think it was more the fact when I was back home in Scotland you used to see these beers a lot and I'd be more inclined to buy something that I didn't see so often. So this is probably why it's taken me quite a while to get round to reviewing one of these Ballast Point beers. But as you can see actually, I'm surprised at just how clear that beer is. I can see my computer quite clearly when I'm looking at it straight there, but you can see this beer has poured a really nice kind of orange amber there. I'll just bring the light over and let you see that a bit more brightly. There's a solid finger and a half of a frothy kind of creamy white coloured head there, a little bit bumpy, but a lot of nice kind of carbonation there. Quite a lot actually visible going up towards the bottom of the head and some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. But this beer looks really, really nice. It's very clear actually. Usually the IPAs I have, I'm more used to IPAs being quite hazy and unfiltered, but this beer looks very, very nice, I have to admit. So we'll have a smell of this and then we'll get on to the tasting. So it has all the typical elements. Just on the first little smell, it has all the typical elements you'd expect of an American West Coast IPA. Quite a bit of passion fruit and peachy aroma coming out of this one actually. Not so much grapefruit, there is just a little bit in there. You can smell some kind of juicy mangoes in there when it has such a peachy, kind of a peachy and passion fruit and mango-y aroma in there. Maybe even apricots coming out of this beer. I do wonder if they've used the Citra hop in there, because the Citra one is one that really gives you a lot of these kind of more complex tropical fruit aromas in there. But there's a nice orangey citrus in there. Just a little bit of pine resin actually, but that's very, very mild. This aroma is more about the juicy fruity characters. As I said, those kind of Citra hop aromas I think are coming out of this one. But there's a bit of a floral aromatic character in there. And as you sugar the beer up a little bit more, you start to get more of the malt base coming out of this one. There's a bit of bready character, and I want to say there's a kind of biscuity and caramel sweetness in there. There's a definite, when you sugar it up like this and just smell it from a bit further away, you can definitely smell a sort of biscuity and sort of that biscuity, cereally syrup character that you get. It reminds me of digestive biscuits actually that we get back home. Very, very nice smelling beer. So as I always say before you try your beers, have a smell of them, especially when it comes to breweries like this who are very, very hop forward. There's a lot of stuff going on in this beer, but for me, the most prominent component of this one is the nice, juicy, tropical fruit character. So do give it a smell before you get stuck in, but that's exactly what we're going to do now. So this is the Sculpin IPA, rated at 100 on Rate Beer, from Ballast Point Brewing Company in San Diego, California. My very first try of a Ballast Point beer, so I hope it's a good one. Skål, and cheers to John Shepherd and his wife Helen over in Sydney, Australia. Skål. Now that's really nice actually, very The first thing I'm noticing about this beer is just how light it is actually. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, but it's very, very drinkable, and I think that's the point of this beer. They did say something on the website about that this was supposed to be a quite light and quite drinkable beer, this. Yeah, it's quite juicy, and the hop, it's well balanced actually. The hops don't come in and give you a really big burst of dryness. The idea behind the hops in this beer on first impression is that they're just, they just want to blend these flavours together quite well, and it does work, just without even paying too much attention and dissecting the flavour too much. You really get that impression from this beer. So yeah, the middle of the palate in this one is just blanketed with a nice light, kind of almost pale malt bready character. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, there's a little bit of a cereal character. You can feel just a little bit of dryness in the middle of the palate, but there is a little bit of that more rich kind of syrupy caramel that just comes in on top. If you go right down the middle of your tongue there's a nice richer caramel flavour comes out, and it is very, very nice actually. But yeah, the flavour in this one is actually very smooth. Around the back corners of the palate, you're getting a nice smooth grassy character, and it becomes a bit more floral and aromatic as you move further forward. You can get just a little bit of a pine resin character from this beer, particularly as you move into the aftertaste. As the beer progresses into the aftertaste, it becomes a little bit drier, and that's when the floral, aromatic and more pine resin flavours start to push their way forward. But when you actually have the liquid in your mouth, it's more of a light bready character with more of the juicy fruits in there. So it works really well. As I said, this IPA isn't about being in your face about any certain element. This is more about how the flavours blend together. But yeah, as I said, slightly floral and aromatic as you come forward around the edge of your palate, and it actually gets very, very smooth around the front of the tongue. It is still a bit floral, but very, very smooth, and if you go behind that front curve of the tongue, that's where your nice fruity characteristics of the beer are coming out. So there is a bit of that oily bubble, there's a little bit of the orange citrusy flavours coming out, but there's a kind of more complex and more tropical fruit flavour. The tropical fruits are the ones that are kind of punching above their weight in this beer. So I want to say in this one, not so much a grapefruit flavour actually. The grapefruit gives you a kind of sour fruit flavour, but your palate of course might feel that differently, but I always feel grapefruit has this slightly sour flavour to it. This one for me is more about the kind of passion fruit, and there's a sort of peachy flavour in there too. Peaches to me come across as quite it's almost a little bit of a kind of dusty, juicy flavour that you get from these peaches, and you can definitely pick that up in here, but there's more of a juicy mango and sort of apricot flavour coming out of this beer too, and then there's a kind of orange citrus just backing that up in there. So just pay attention to that little oily bubble behind the very front of your tongue, and that's where you'll get a lot of these kind of complex juicy flavours in there. But for me, like I said, this beer is more about how the flavours blend together rather than being in your face, and it works very well. I mean, that explains why it has such a good rating. A lot of people will use this beer as a go-to beer. It's definitely a nice sessionable IPA. At 7%, you don't feel a lot of the alcohol warmth coming out it, but in terms of the mouthfeel, it's mid-bodied, probably more light-bodied actually. Light to mid-bodied is probably a good description. Carbonation in this one is very smooth. It's got quite an oily mouthfeel. That helps the nice juicy fruit characters come out, particularly the more tropical flavours. But there's a nice hoppy bitterness there, and as I say, that builds as you move into the aftertaste. More floral and aromatic, but you can pick up some of the sweeter characteristics of the malt, and there is a bit of a cereal dry character in the middle of the palate there too. So overall, this is a really quite nice beer. I can see why it's quite highly rated, very highly rated I should say. Very easy drinking, very sessionable beer. At 7% as well, it is going to give you a little bit of a buzz too for how drinkable it is. So it's perhaps a little bit dangerously drinkable, but as long as the beer tastes good, who cares? Have a good time, don't act like an idiot. that's the whole point of this. But this is a very nice beer, and on the basis of this one I wouldn't hesitate to go back and try some more Ballast Point things. So I'll try one of their darker beers next time to kind of get the contrast in the brewing styles, but I'd love to try that Imperial Red beer if I could get a hold of it. And as John said as well, Victory at Sea is supposed to be pretty awesome too, so I'll see if I can get one of those and review it for you in the near future. But as I said, this is a very good session beer. If you enjoy your West Coast IPAs and you haven't heard of Ballast Point before, this is another kind of go-to beer, probably kind of similar to the West Coast IPA from Green Flash and things. This is a nice, very well blended flavoured IPA, so do go and check it out. But I would guess that most of you watching in California have heard of these guys. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been cool to visit another California brewery and do that. There's a lot of Californian beer available here in Sweden, and also from Colorado as well. There's a lot of Colorado beer, so we're getting some really good American beers over here now. But I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, let me know in the comments section below your own thoughts on it. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. And please, in the meantime, until the next one, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Go and check out the social media things. I hope to hear from you guys in the comments section below, and you will see more Californian beers soon. But until then, slàinte just now, and please check out the channel. Skål.